Good evening, Chicago and beyond. Live from CAN TV Studio A, I'm Darrious Hilmon, in for Andy Zopp, and this is a special live edition of Chicago Newsroom 2.0. Sufyan Sohel, Watis Gathings, Francia Garcia Hernandez, and Swathi Staley join me to discuss how law firms, college students, universities, and Governor Pritzker are standing up or lying down in the face of demands from the White House. On the special roundtable, Joli Robinson, Darius Caffey, Channyn Lynn Parker, and Ella Jasso joined the conversation to discuss the flurry of government-sanctioned attacks against the LGBTQ+ community and what's being done to counter the vitriol. I'll sit one-on-one with Dr. Paul Yanover to discuss testicular cancer prevention and treatment, and I'll also sit in conversation with the brand new CEO of Howard Brown Health, Dr. Travis Gayles. We've got a jam-packed hour ahead, and it all begins on the other side of a short break. Stay with us.
Every community has a story, a pulse, a voice waiting to be heard. At CAN TV, we bring these stories to light, from the heart of Chicago to your living room. Join us in supporting hyper-local television. Your backing helps us cover what matters directly in our communities, unfiltered and upfront. Help tell the important stories of our communities. Become a program underwriter today.
Hi, I'm Robin Robinson, inviting you to tune in to the new CAN TV original program, In Other News. Each week, I will break down newsworthy topics that traditional outlets may ignore, grounded in truth, fun, and blackness, from the trap house to the White House, with the big house in between. Join the conversation on CAN TV Cable Channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Hyper-local news and critical analysis. Experience the power of community television.
Welcome back, Chicago. April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, a time dedicated to shining a light on the disease that does not often get the attention it deserves. It's the most predominant form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35. But there's good news. Testicular cancer is highly treatable, especially when caught early. But stigma, lack of awareness, and hesitation around self-exams mean that too many cases still go undetected until later stages. Tonight, we're breaking down the facts, dispelling the myths, and talking openly about the importance of early detection. To help us understand the signs, the risk factors, and what every man and the people who care about him should know, I'm joined by board-certified urologist, Dr. Paul Yanover. Dr. Paul Yanover, welcome back to the newsroom, sir. How are you?
Thank you very, very much.
It's always great to have you here.
Appreciate it.
Let's begin with this. Give us the basics. What exactly is testicular cancer? How common is it among men, particularly younger men?
Yeah, so, and thank you very much. I think this is something that needs more attention because I think the problem with testicular cancer is that people, because of stigma, because of lack of knowledge, and sometimes access to care, if they forego an evaluation and treatment, even for a short period of time, it can impact outcome. So a testicular cancer is a cancer within the testicle. That's what the name implies. The testicle only has two functions: to make testosterone and to make sperm. That's all it's there for. And the reason why it hangs outside the body in a scrotum is for temperature. The testicle does its best job when it's slightly cooler than the rest of the body. And a testicular cancer is a cancer that arises from what we call a germ cell. That's the cells within the testicle that are making sperm. And it's a pretty rare disease. Only about 7,500 to 8,000 cases in the United States. What's funny though, in my clinic, I have a lot of men come in because they're worried. They're anxious about testicular cancer. They'll have aches, pains, they'll feel something abnormal, and they'll be anxious to have it evaluated because it is for some people, top of mind. And then I find it ironic and sad and frustrating as a physician that there are patients that I see who delay evaluation and delay treatment, either because of the stigma, the lack of knowledge, lack of access to care. And you know, one of the real things with testicular cancer is it's painless. And so for men, for guys like you and me, we know the testicles are extremely sensitive parts of the body. And that makes sense, right? Nature makes them sensitive because...
So it's nature's fault.
It's nature's fault. Well, it's the protective mechanism, right? If they're exquisitely tender, you're going to be extra careful to protect them. And so the sensitivity of the testicles actually is an evolutionary thing, because without testicles, we're not going to procreate. So we're extra careful with those things, and they're hanging outside the body, and that's something, you know, that makes them a little extra likely to get a little ding here and there.
Okay, so let's do our work together, trying to remove some stigma. How often should men be doing self-exams, and this is a question I have as well, how do we do it correctly?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot. You know, it's not completely analogous to breast exams with women.
Okay.
Testicular exams I encourage because it is a great way for a person to be familiar with their body. And that's really important, both as part of the destigmatization, right? You know, I talk about testicles and scrotums and penises. It just rolls. And I bring, you know, I'm traveling with plastic genitalia wherever I go. That's part of my job. But part of my job is to normalize that, because that's part of a conversation. People should be just as comfortable talking about testicles and penises as they are with any other parts of the body, and that's sort of part of our goals. But you know, the self-exam, right? It's just being aware of what your baseline is. What are the parts? You know, the testicle isn't just a ball of tissue. It's an organ. It's an endocrinologic organ. It actually does stuff. It makes hormones, and it makes sperm, and it has an attachment called there's a vas deferens and a thing called the epididymis. That's a clump of tissue right next to the testicle, and it's important to feel what that feels like. And so what we recommend, if you're going to do a self-exam, first of all, do it sort of in the same position. Typically, you're in the shower, nice warm water, everything's relaxed, you're in your own privacy. You know, feel from the top down and just sort of get a sense of what they feel like. We obviously have to feel the whole testicle. But those first couple times you do a full exam on both sides, you get to feel there's some lumps and bumps and there's some normal tissue in there. What we would want for a testicular exam is for you to understand if there's a change. Because if you examine your testicles once a month, if, God forbid, a new development, a mass shows up, you're going to notice it. And the reason why I say once a month is that unlike other tumors, testicular cancer is very fast growing. In oncologic terms, we talk about the doubling time of the cells. Testicular cancer often has a doubling time of 20 to 30 days. So it will double in size, some tumors, within a month or two. So if you were to do a self-exam and then wait 6 or 12 months, it would be too late. So while we don't push self-exams as being sort of a mandatory thing, part of that is because it's such a rare tumor. So you'd have hundreds of millions of men doing a self-exam every single month to catch a small number of those tumors. But I think it's a good practice, and I think it's a good practice particularly for younger men to talk about with their healthcare physicians, their pediatricians, their family members, you know, father, son. You know, there's nothing better than to have that conversation. That's breaking down the stigma wall, and I think that's where it's probably just as useful.
So brass tacks, how do I check it?
Shower, standing up, nice warm water. Grab gently. We always careful
what are
when
these?
we're always careful when we use the word grab and testicle in the same sentence. So gently manipulate the scrotum, and you want to go from the top down, and you want to do it the same way. It's a sphere, and it's sitting there sort of hanging like this.
Is this real size?
Yeah, this is about. There's actually, again, only a urologist comes around with fake testicles. These are actually what we call a prosthesis. A fake testicle. So this is what we put into a body if we take a testicle out and we have to replace it, like a breast implant.
Okay.
It's silicone, we fill it with saline.
Okay.
You know.
Destigmatized,
yes,
doctor.
exactly. Well, if you asked to hold my balls, Darius, I can say that you
I'm going to
did.
give them back. There you go. So let me ask you this. A few things in our time together, and of course we'll continue our conversations. It's a silent, you say it's silent.
It is silent because it's typically a painless mass. So it will grow and it will be a firm, painless mass within the testicle.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want people to notice. If it is new, painless mass, if you squeeze it and it doesn't hurt, that's a concern actually. And the pain is actually an important part because typically painful conditions within the testicle are not tumors, not cancer, but there are other things going on there, right? And
Okay.
I love the fact that there is a Testicular Awareness Month. I think this is great, and I think the service you're doing, you should be commended. I think it's wonderful. I would like to just broaden this to be more testicular health because there's so many other things going on with the testicle that I think your viewers would benefit from understanding. So, a lot of patients come to me, they're worried about testicular cancer, but as it turns out, sometimes we find that it's a inguinal hernia. That's a herniation of bowel contents that slips through the canal and it can end up in the scrotum. That's a painless mass that can happen. And a hernia oftentimes needs to get fixed. So I will evaluate those and diagnose them all the time.
So examining is good for any number of reasons, and they're giving me, we've got about a minute and a half left. I want to ask you, and I always do here because of the audiences that we are intentionally serving. While statistically, testicular cancer is less common among black men, surprise, surprise, it's often found when it's in the later stages. I think I know the answer, but please tell me why that is happening.
Yeah, so it's one of the tragedies. Again, whenever there's any barrier to accessing health care, stigma, cultural attitudes, lack of education and understanding, but really it's the access to care.
Access to care.
When I think that that's usually what drives this. The upside with testicular cancer, as you point out, it is less common in African Americans. It's much more common in Caucasians. But the advanced disease, unfortunately, sometimes we will see that. And that is prevented by early access to care. Right. But the one thing about testicular cancer that I really want your viewers to understand is that while it's something that scares everybody, it is a highly, highly curable disease. Even in its advanced stages. Lance Armstrong's probably one of the most famous testicular cancer survivors. He had it in his brain and all over his body. They were able to cure him with chemotherapy and some surgery. And that's what's the most remarkable thing about testicular cancer is that I can almost always cure a patient who presents with it. And
I'm going to stop you right there. They're timing me out. Doctor, it is always a pleasure to have you here. Listen, I have lots of conversations, but your conversations are actually life-saving information being shared. So thank you. Look forward to having you back on the show. You know you're going to be back. Listen, on the other side of this break, I'm going to be joined by our roundtable regulars. We're going to discuss how law firms, students, universities, and Governor Pritzker are responding to being on the presidential administration's radar. Stay with us.
For more than 40 years, CAN TV has been Chicago's voice, your voice. We've shared your stories, amplified your concerns, and celebrated your triumphs. Now we want to hear from you. What programs matter most? What issues should we cover? How can we better serve your community? Visit cantv.org/feedback today. CAN TV. Experience the power of community television.
Hi, I'm financial expert Tamara Durbin, inviting you to join me each week for In the Money, the show that makes money management approachable and enjoyable. Join the conversation at 7 p.m. exclusively on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Tonight, we turn our attention to an intensifying national flashpoint, one that has ignited a storm of political, academic, and civil rights implications. In a sweeping move, the U.S. government has rescinded federal funding for a number of prominent universities, including Northwestern University, citing what officials describe as campus environments that have failed to, quote, maintain order and uphold constitutional protections, end quote. In a related development, the administration has also announced the termination of student visas for certain international students involved in campus protests, raising alarms among immigration advocates and higher education leaders alike. The message from Washington is loud and clear, and it's being felt from lecture halls to legislative chambers. The administration is also engaged in a series of controversial dealings with major U.S. and international law firms, leveraging executive authority to influence their practices and align them with the administration priorities. Several prominent law firms, including Kirkland & Ellis, Latham & Watkins, and Skadden, Arps, Slate, Mager, and Flom, have agreed to provide pro bono legal services in excess of $1 billion to causes endorsed by the Trump administration. These agreements often involve commitments to review or alter hiring practices, particularly concerning diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI policies, in exchange for the administration retracting or avoiding punitive executive actions. Other law firms, most notably Jenner & Block, have refused to capitulate to the administration's pressure, opting instead to challenge the executive orders and policies through legal avenues. And as if that wasn't enough, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz have been summoned to testify before Congress to once again defend each state's sanctuary city policies. What does all of this mean for academic freedom and civil dissent, and for the future of higher education in this country? Joining me to unpack it all are roundtable regulars, and I'm so grateful to have them here tonight. Sufjan Sohail, Chair of the Cook County Commission on Human Rights, Watis Gathings, co-founder Just Act Partners, Francia Garcia Hernandez, reporter for Block Club Chicago, award-nominated reporter for Block Club Chicago, and Swati Staley, partner at Just Act Partners. Welcome back, family.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
But you just said a mouthful.
I know.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to talk less here because, my God, today. Let's start. Rescinding federal funding for universities. I think I know the answer. I'm looking at you, Sufjan, the legal eagle. I'll be coming to you next, the other legal eagle. What specific criteria did our federal government use to justify rescinding funding for Northwestern and other universities? And has that been consistently applied?
The second answer is no.
Okay, start there.
First, it's very arbitrary, right? We don't like the spaces that you're creating. And it goes into the second topic that if you don't mind, if I could merge them both together.
Put them together.
Right? And it's going into what are these spaces that these universities are fostering. On one side, you have schools like Harvard, which awesomely this week was like, our spaces are hubs for academic freedom and thought. And I want to take even a step back. I brought a prop as well, and I saw in the previous act, but the United States Constitution, right, which is really important to acknowledge because in the Bill of Rights, it states that the protections are in place for all persons living within the United States, not just U.S. citizens.
How about that?
The only things that are applicable to United States citizens is voting. When you talk about First Amendment, rights of speech, religion, assembly, when you talk about due process, when you talk about search and seizure, these are all for all people residing within the United States.
This country
doesn't
built on
matter
immigrants.
about what their status is, how they came to this country. If they're within the borders, it applies to them.
Okay.
But what we're seeing is people who are protesting, which they have every right to, whether we agree with their viewpoints or not, but these people who are protesting the killing of innocent people, bombings of refugee camps, they're being targeted. And now that they're losing their visas and they're protesting in places which should be promoting these spaces of free thought and spirit, but now they're being threatened and actually actions being taken about them. We had that Mahmoud Khalil case just last week where the court came out and Marco Rubio wrote a letter to the court that says, he hasn't done anything criminally wrong, but he's speaking out against the interests of the United States. So the caution that what I'm worried about is this thread that we're seeing. And I know the next segment, one of the next segments, we'll be talking about LGBTQ rights. And I'm thinking about immigration issues and people losing their visas. I'm thinking about the tariffs and people protesting all of that. If the four of us were students here on student visas and all part of the student newspaper and all writing op-eds on these different issues, if I am protesting Palestine, I'm out. But what if you're protesting the tariffs? Can she be the next target? If you're protesting immigration and people being sent to El Salvador, could they be the next target? Like, where does this stop? Is this just a litmus test to see what he can get away with? What is really happening here?
Any thoughts, Swati, that this gentleman did not cover?
Well, I mean, my illustrious co-panelist really did hit the nail on the head. I mean, historically, student protests in this country have been a bellwether of progress and change within
part of all of our college experiences.
Absolutely, and it's an incredible indicator of the direction that the country should be going in many cases. And so the ability for this fundamental right to be chilled through an executive order and through actions really destabilizing our higher education system it's deeply concerning. But Suf had hit the nail on the head that this is really step one. We don't know what the next set of actions really could entail, and it's deeply, deeply concerning.
Yeah. And I think, Sufjan, you said this months ago on the show, sitting on this panel, this all collectively feels like flooding the zone and exhausting us, overwhelming us, throwing us off of our axis. But that said, I'm a university, my alma mater, University of Michigan, capitulated. And I just want to throw this question out because we all are going to make sacrifices. There's no way anyone in this country right now, we're going to feel what is happening to this country in some way, no matter who we voted for. University of Michigan is a public institution. Harvard is a private institution. And again, all due respect, because it's real easy to just capitulate. But how is that going to affect the Northwesterns, the Michigans, who depend on, I think Northwestern lost nearly $1 billion of federal funding alone, that single school. Where is going to be, what's the breaking point that you see? Or are schools going to start quietly or not so quietly as the case of U of M, getting rid of DEI? Or maybe trying to call it something else, but always so afraid of pleasing the current leader of the United States, whose views can change by the day. What's the way forward?
I think as we all can talk about, I mean, we're living in clearly unprecedented times, but I think the thing that gives me hope is people have to step up and power has to do that. And I think Harvard, being one of our country's oldest institutions, one of the most powerful institutions, is creating a playbook right now, right in front of us. I think that what they're doing is not only a bold move, but it's other universities are watching. So you have the Big Ten today talking about how they're going to band together to come up with collective action. You target one of our schools, you target us all, and they're going to band together. And so I do think that what Harvard is doing is a playbook for all of us. And as Sufjan said, today it's about funding of schools. Tomorrow it's about human rights, and it continues. And I think that we should all be concerned and we should all be ready to activate on behalf of these topics, because while it may not be our cause today, it can be our cause tomorrow.
Agreed. So we understand what's happening. What is this saying because universities, especially top universities, count on the intellectual prowess and curiosity of international students. That was one of the great things of me coming from the east side of Detroit, going to University of Michigan, meeting folks from all over the world, different backgrounds. It was an imperfect melting, not a melting pot, it was an imperfect mosaic, but beautifully imperfect. What cost is that going to be to universities who are looking for international students? What price are they going to pay for that? And then what message is this sending to international community about the state of this country, because education is key to the progress of a country? What is it saying?
Well, I think it's well known that many universities rely on international students coming here and paying tuition. Oftentimes they're not eligible for discounted tuition. Oftentimes they're not eligible for scholarships, so they're paying a full ride to study in the United States, and many times to gain professional experience afterward. that also benefits companies in the United States. So we're talking about universities, we're talking about businesses, we're talking about research and scientific research. Oftentimes, we have many people, bright, talented people coming to the United States. So there's economic repercussions, of course, in the dollars that are coming to universities, but there's also progress potentially being lost because we're losing brilliant minds, or we could be losing brilliant minds. We could be losing researchers who are in the middle of a project and have their status
That could be the
revoked.
next year for cancer.
And they have to leave. So it has really deep and concerning repercussions. We don't have, this is not perfect science where we can say every visa revoked will lead to this much, in dollar amounts being lost, but there is a real loss in economic, and there's a real loss in knowledge and thought. And that has been the basis of this country for a really long time, right? Being able to have researchers, being able to have science and discovery, and that leads a question as to where is that going to go, and how is that going to affect other people coming here and instead choosing to go elsewhere where they feel more protected, or where they feel like if they're investing thousands of dollars in their education, that's not going to change overnight.
Yeah. And that takes me to where we usually go. We need legal eagles and law firms to get on top of this and fight the good fight. But then I share with our viewers a story about major blue chip law firms capitulating. I don't know a better word, capitulating to the Trump administration. Is this legal?
It remains to be seen. We've never seen anything like this in our history. What's deeply problematic about leveraging the executive branch to effectively twist the arms of those representing, the legal process is that so much of this is unknown. There's no formal agreements in place between the Trump administration.
I just read this. They're not in writing.
No, they're not.
They're on Twitter, and they're on X and Truth Social as bullet points.
So the administration can really
sources.
say, I didn't mean that, I meant this, or I changed my mind, I now want you to do this.
Right, and initially when these announcements came out that these law firms were being were providing pro bono services to quote unquote uncontroversial topics. The thought behind pro bono services is that they typically help those who can't afford legal services. These blue chip firms,
and
as you
mentioned.
mentioned.
That's usually not the administration of the United
Absolutely.
States.
And now, after these agreements were effectively brokered, we have the administration and Trump specifically saying that he'd like to leverage these law firms and these lawyers through their quote unquote pro bono quotient that they provided under these agreements to help support legal challenges to tariff policy and really the administration's platform, which is not uncontroversial and is really putting a lot of their clients, a lot of these law firms' clients, in a position where they have to question whether or not they can get proper, neutral representation, or are they sort of bound to a policy and a practice that is really very pro and aligned with the administration's policies, which may not be in the best interest of the clients.
And the administration is not that clear about their expectations.
Absolutely.
We've got about 2 minutes. I want to cover two things as efficiently as possible. Why would a law firm do this? Why would they agree to this?
To stay in good graces with the government, to get those government contracts, right? The government is always outsourcing, bringing outside counsel
So it's
in.
about money.
It's about money,
Question.
and it's about power and access.
Question asked, question answered.
Yep.
Governor Pritzker has received an invitation. Should he take it? And if he does, what does success look like for him during those testimonies? Watis.
I think I'm very proud of our governor. He can spar with the best of them.
My gosh.
I think that, while I thought our mayor did a great job responding to the show that happened in D.C., I think the governor will not only do a great job, but I also think he'll be in a better position to school and educate.
Should he go?
I think he should go,
Okay.
Because I think that he believes in what he's talking about. But frankly, I think that if we need leadership right now, and I don't think he's scared of the moment, and I think he can handle the moment.
Should he go?
I think there's a lot that he can say and clarify, because what we're seeing is a lot of information being pushed by the White House, by the federal administration, that is not based on facts. So he has an opportunity to state clearly what the Illinois Trust Act is, what sanctuary protections are and are not, and clearly specify that it does not impede immigration authorities doing their job.
Good.
That's right.
Listen, you all are regulars. It's always great talking with you. I am a proxy for our audience, and it's always helpful. There is so much happening, and I'm grateful. We are grateful to you, Sufyan and Watis and Francia and Swati, for coming on with us, bringing the Constitution, my goodness, and having critical conversations that are not panicked. Because I think now more than ever that's absolutely important. So we will see you all back probably as soon as next week for some of you. On the other side of the break, I'll be joined by the new CEO of Howard Brown Health, Dr. Travis Gayles. Stay with us.
Every community has a story, a pulse, a voice waiting to be heard. At CAN TV, we bring these stories to light, from the heart of Chicago to your living room. Join us in supporting hyper-local television. Your backing helps us cover what matters directly in our communities, unfiltered and upfront. Help tell the important stories of our communities. Become a program underwriter today.
I'm Darrious Hilmon, inviting you to join me for Chicago Noir, the news magazine that highlights and showcases the African-American experience in the Windy City. Tune in each month on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
CAN TV is the lens through which Chicago's stories are told, harnessing the unifying power of community television. With CAN TV On Demand, immerse yourself in the richness of our city through exclusive stories and programs tailored just for you, connecting you to the heartbeats of our streets, the voices of our people, and the spirit that makes Chicago unique. Discover the strength of your community on CAN TV On Demand.
Hi, I'm Joli Robinson, inviting you to tune in to the new CAN TV original program, In Other News. Each week, I will break down newsworthy topics that traditional outlets may ignore, grounded in truth, fun, and blackness, from the trap house to the White House, with the big house in between. Join the conversation on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Hyper-local news and critical analysis. Experience the power of community television.
Howard Brown Health has long stood at the intersection of healthcare and advocacy, serving Chicago's LGBTQ+ community with dignity, equity, and a deep commitment to public health. And now, the organization is entering a new chapter of leadership. Dr. Travis Gayles, a nationally respected public health leader and physician, is stepping in as the new CEO. From his work leading COVID-19 response efforts in Maryland to his continued push for health equity and LGBTQ+ healthcare access, Dr. Gayles brings both clinical expertise and a bold vision for the future. We are thrilled to welcome you here, Dr. Gayles. I don't know if this is your first or 15th interview since taking over, but congratulations.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with you.
Listen, I'm well, as a family member of the LGBTQ+ community, I am very familiar with Howard Brown since I've been here the past 16 years. You find out who the leaders are in the cities that you move to. The mission is unique. It serves the LGBTQ+ community with affirming, inclusive health care. How does that mission evolve or expand under your leadership?
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to join you. And Howard Brown was founded upon the premise of creating a space that was open, welcoming, and affirming for folks who had no other place to go. And back 50 years ago when Howard Brown was founded, that meant many members of the LGBTQ community, people living with HIV, they had nowhere else to go because doors were closed. We will continue to build upon that history and be a beacon and a leader in that space, but we also recognize as times have evolved that there are many other members as well in the communities that we serve that have nowhere to go to get their health care. And as we have increased our geographic footprint across the city particularly in the south side of the city. We know that there are members who live close to our clinics who are in some zip codes that have 20-year differences in life expectancy, significantly lower screening rates for preventable diseases. And we have made a commitment to build on our history, but also make sure that we are a center and a space for everyone, regardless of who you love, what language you speak at home, what zip code you live in, or what type of insurance you have, as a place for high quality care that affirms you as a human being.
And each leader brings unique traits. Among your myriad is a deep, rich experience in public health and health equity. How do you see that perspective shaping your approach to expanding the access and addressing some of the disparities you've talked about, specifically for the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I think the first thing is equity, diversity, and inclusion. Those are not bad words for us.
How about that?
And they are things that we will continue to use to guide our programs, our protocols, and the services and clients we provide. I think the first important piece coming from a public health background is taking a population health approach, recognizing that the clinical part of an individual's healthcare process is only one piece of that. The social determinants that impact, are they housing secure, are they food secure, do they have health insurance in a medical home? We take the approach of seeing the whole person and thinking through how all of those things factor into an individual's ability to be healthy and whole. I think the second principle is from public health is recognizing that we have to be savvy and leverage data and leverage other resources and tools to make sure that our communities have the information that they need to be healthy and whole. So you had a whole segment on testicular cancer, making sure that we are leveraging our resources to make sure that our communities are aware of those things and know what to be thinking about in terms of when to get screened and what to look for. And I think the third thing is, as you referenced to the LGBTQ community of color, we certainly celebrate our history at Howard Brown and have lots of successes, but we know that there have been times in our history that we've not been perfect, and those successes have not been enjoyed by all parts of the community. And so to those who may not have had the greatest experience, I apologize and I'm sorry, and I look forward to having meaningful dialogue and conversation to talk about how we can learn from those experiences and grow in the future.
I love that you anticipated my next question. Any organization with a 50-year history, but there, prior to you, none of this is under your watch. There's been tension, transition at Howard Brown in recent years, including staff restructuring and community pushback. How are you envisioning rebuilding any damaged trust with those communities?
Well, I think any effective leader, the first thing they do when they join a new company is to take time to get to know folks, to listen and learn from those past experiences. They may glean best practices as well as learn from past mistakes so they don't repeat those in the future. And so part of my approach is just being really meaningful in terms of forming relationships and getting to know folks. And so that starts with our staff. I have a main office in one particular building and location, but I don't want to be tethered to the desk. I want to actually be out and meeting people in our clinics and in our community programs so that we normalize them seeing me and create opportunities where we can have bidirectional conversation, bidirectional exchange of ideas, and I can create spaces where I can learn from them, see what the pressure points are to be able to inform the decisions that need to be made. And building upon that, the same thing applies to creating new opportunities to talk about the past in our relationships with community partners, acknowledge past issues, but create a space where we can heal from that and move on and pivot to the future, because we've got a lot of work to do. And Howard Brown can't do it alone. Community Agency X can't do it alone.
Sure.
We've got to work together.
Agreed. And we talk about it, we're talking about it even more here. But even before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, mental health, against the backdrop of what's happening in this country right now with the current administration, trans health care, HIV prevention, they remain top priority for LGBTQ plus patients. How are you envisioning strengthening those services at this incredibly critical time in our shared history?
I think the first step is to acknowledge the value of those services, commit to continuing those services, and exploring ways where we can expand and grow and maintain the integrity of those services. Now, in a federal socio-political environment within which we live right now, we've got to be nimble and strategic about how we do that, but we're committed to not making any changes to what we offer and looking at ways where we can expand those services. And again, thinking about the whole person and how each of those particular components impact that person's ability to be healthy.
Okay. So for our community, the community within which I'm a part, the LGBTQ plus community, what do you see as some of the biggest threats for us right now, as well as some of the greatest opportunities? What's the state of the landscape?
Well, I know I have a short time. We could talk an entire segment on that.
You have a minute and 30.
Okay, well, I'll go fast.
I'll have you back.
Access to care.
Okay.
Challenges to getting access to care, and when you have insurance coverage, what do you actually have access to in terms of the quality of services that are provided? I have long believed that just because you're getting services at an FQHC, or federally qualified health center, or a health department, that should not mean that there's any sacrifice in the quality of the services that you get.
Oh, say that loud for the cheap seats.
Access. Changes to policy and legislation that impact the ability to provide services. Things like the 340B program that allows for federally qualified health centers and nonprofit health centers to be able to invest savings into other parts of their programs to be able to support and maintain the scope of services they provide. And I think the third thing is just a lack of high quality information and an information vacuum where we need to fill and others need to step in and fill to make sure that people understand the value of vaccines, the value of long-standing, historic, evidence-based practices that keep people healthier.
Dr. Gayles, one, I'm going to say it out loud on the air live, so I sort of lock you into saying yes. We want to have you back. These conversations for this incredibly important community, to me personally, but should be important to all of us. It's a part of our shared space. I'd love to have you back on to have some continuing conversations, not just some one-off conversations about this incredibly important community. Thank you. I see, I had no say in you being there, but I see why Howard Brown made the selection. It's clear, and I think our viewers will see that as well. So we wish you continued great success, both you and Howard Brown.
Happy to be back.
On the other side of the break, I'll be joined by some of the most passionate LGBTQ plus leaders and advocates discussing the seemingly endless attacks on the community. Stay with us. I'm Darrious Hilmon, inviting you to join me for the Chicago Noir, the news magazine that highlights and showcases the African American experience in the Windy City. Tune in each month on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
CAN-TV is the lens through which Chicago's stories are told, harnessing the unifying power of community television. With CAN-TV On Demand, immerse yourself in the richness of our city through exclusive stories and programs tailored just for you, connecting you to the heartbeats of our streets, the voices of our people, and the spirit that makes Chicago unique. Discover the strength of your community on CAN-TV On Demand.
Across the country and right here in Chicago, LGBTQ plus rights are once again under fire. From book bans and drag show restrictions to attempts to roll back health care protections and limit self-expression in schools, the fight for equity is far from over. Chicago has long been seen as a progressive stronghold, but even here, community leaders say the rhetoric and policy threats are escalating. Tonight, I am joined by several voices at the forefront of the movement, the LGBTQ plus leaders who are organizing, advocating, and refusing to stay silent in the face of growing attacks. We'll talk about what's happening on the ground, how it's impacting lives, and what's being done to push back and protect hard-won rights. Darius Caffey, CEO of The Closet Unlocked, Joli Robinson, CEO of the Center on Halstead, Channyn Lynn Parker, CEO of Brave Space Alliance, and Ella Jasso, TGNC Surgical Health Navigator for Howard Brown Health. Good evening, family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you here. Let's do what we always do around the kitchen table. Let's just jump into it. There's been an uptick. That feels like such an understatement, but an uptick in legislation and rhetoric targeting our community nationwide. How is that showing up here in Chicago, a blue state still, but not as blue as it was even 4 years ago? How is that showing up here in Chicago, and what specific threats are each of you most concerned about? Darius, I'll start with you on this question.
For me, it's the access to opportunity. I think with a lot of our organizations, we are continuously creating programs to provide more safe spaces, more support systems, and more access to resources for our community members who are disenfranchised. However, the powers that be that we relate to and that we rely on to be able to provide these opportunities and services are currently silent, and that's a problem.
Got it. Joli, what say you?
What's at risk? What's at risk, right, is the question.
Yes.
So, number one, thank you for having us all. The roundtable that you put together tonight is a powerhouse of individuals that are doing such amazing work in our community. True, we live in a blue city, in a blue state. Many of our LGBTQ plus siblings do not have that luxury, do not have that privilege. But what's at risk when we continue to hear this rhetoric? We're living in a moment where this is an autocratic regime that none of us in our lifetimes have experienced before. So what's at risk is our own mental and emotional health, first and foremost. Outside of being leaders in the space and at our organizations, we are also under attack because we are Black and brown people. We are often people living at the margins, not only financially, but in being resourced and having the opportunity to get the services and programs that we need. So as Pritzker is being called up, as our mayor is being called up, everything is having the holes poked in it in so many eyes. I think there's just a bigger target. Although we are safe and can feel safe, there's also a bigger target on our backs.
Agreed. There's been pushback against the LGBTQ plus content in schools and libraries, even here locally. What do you think the broader impact of this kind of censorship will be on young people in our community?
Oh my goodness. So we've seen an unprecedented amount of progress in the past few decades.
Yeah. And that might be part of the problem we're having right now.
Correct, right? And a part of the health and healing and forward motion that we've seen in the LGBTQ community is that young people have had access to see themselves in a different light, a light that's empowering. One of the things that Darius just talked about a second ago remind me that there's two unique things that trans-identified and non-binary people are robbed of, and that's access to thrive and access to personhood, okay? So when individuals do not have the ability to chart their course outside of harmful ideologies, it sends them spiraling not only back into closets, but also into self-harm, black market, abusive situations, and just historical inaccuracies, right? So those are the things that we stand to risk if we continue to move forward in the way that this regime, as Joli Robinson said, is progressing towards.
Ella, any thoughts on this?
You know, I echo everything everyone said. Knowledge is power. And that comes from books. That comes from writing, right? So when you're taking these books away, you're taking a lot of our history.
It's by design.
Right? And there's so many facets and so many people contributing to show a little bit of that facet. So we can see ourselves, our journey, because other people have walked it, so we know we can as well. So taking that kind of information is really stripping our history, our ladder to climb, you know, that others have built, you know, and as we said, without that knowledge and that empowerment, we're already in a state of anxiety and depression just for being a part of the community. And even more if you're a person of color, and even more if you're a person of trans experience. So this information is crucial, and it has to stay there. It's life-saving.
And I want to, which is why I wanted you all to be here tonight, because this is no way to describe it. We are in unprecedented times.
Absolutely.
But you all get up every day and you fight and advocate for our community. So I want to just to give us some hope that we're not in this alone, and that there are leaders out like you who, exhausted, tired, bruised, still get up every day and go, but not today, Satan. Darrious, talk about the work that your organization, Closet Unlock, is doing, similar that you've always done, or unique to this time we find ourselves in. How are you out there? How is your organization working to counteract this vitriol that literally is just pervasive?
Yeah. Amazing question, Darrious. And
thank you, Darrious.
One thing that was brought to my attention at one of the events, Building the Table, that I host, is that essentially the communities that we're creating are mobilizing communities. And I was doing the work because it was needed. I was doing the work because it was important, and I wanted to champion the voices of our community members and connect them to resources. But we're truly being able to figure out more ways to allocate these resources to the right folks, to let people know who is not just important in the room and at the table, but who they can connect to share those human-like experiences. We are humans first, regardless of your status as a leader, as a community member, as an organizer. So our role in community is to truly be able to connect people. I'm a bridge builder and a bridge connector, and I thrive in that, and I want to see our people thrive in that. Outside of the work that I'm able to do, I want them to also be empowered to be able to advocate for themselves, to be able to talk about the things that they need, and to be able to find the people that are able to connect them to the resources for them to thrive in this life and sustain it. We're not just doing this for a one-time thing or for our generation. Yes. We're doing it for the generations that come before us, the ones that come after us. For the queer parents.
Honoring our forebearers and
honoring
working for the future.
All of them, our ancestors, our transcestors, our queer parents that are raising kids. We're doing it for all of them. So it goes beyond the rooms that we're creating. It goes beyond the tables that we're establishing. We're doing it for all.
Thank you. Center on Halstead is a big one. So when something like this happens in our community, we're going to look to your organization and Brave Space. So I want to focus with the two of you. How is Center on Halstead? You're a fairly new leader, so you've had to come into major transition. How are you all managing this work? How are you supporting our communities?
Strengthening connections. That's the way we are doing it now, and that's the only way many of us personally and as organizations will survive into the future.
Come on, that is true.
I think this moment is a flash pan moment for us because it has sped up the process to work stronger together. To be stronger together. We should have already been there. We should have already invited people to the table. We should have already added more chairs at the table. We should have already included diverse voices. We should have already centered the experience of our trans siblings in the work that we do. And we had to have this moment, unfortunately, to force our hand. Many of us, like I said, individually and as an organization. So for Center on Halstead, we know that the only way we're going to survive into the future, even after this tumultuous time in our history, is by working together with each of these individuals that are at the table. Exactly. We have to get rid of it. We have to get rid of it.
And maybe that's the silver lining in this mess. What say you?
So Brave Space Alliance is continuing to do what it does best, right? And that's beyond the ground. That is leveraging the community trust that we have won and fought so hard for. One of the, I guess, redemptive things about this moment is Brave Space Alliance has opened its doors to community, regardless of their identity, regardless of their socioeconomics. And what's so powerful about that is that yes, Brave Space Alliance is created by Black trans leaders and has Black trans folks in mind, but the community members that we serve sit there and they say, wow, never would I have imagined that my support, that my safety would be coming from a community that this, that this regime continues to ostracize, continues to demonize. Again, so my leadership is the physical embodiment. It makes a lie out of the individuals who are sitting at the White House right now, because every single day I provide the much needed essential supports.
You're rebuking
to
their
the
lie every day.
community members who have been otherwise lied to.
My goodness.
And that is what Brave Space Alliance does. It flies into the face of all the individuals who lie on our community daily.
Okay. Yes. So we talk about what your organizations do. How are you all, and share this with our viewers, because we're all looking for answers on the personal level. How are you practicing self-care? How intentionally? It can't be happenstance.
Absolutely. In this moment in the season, you know, the word resilience pops up. How are we being resilient? How are we strengthening ourselves? How are we focusing on self-care? Sometimes self-care in this moment means reaching out to Channyn and say, let's grab lunch, honey.
Come on.
And let's talk about nothing else but each other. Let's check in with one another. Sometimes self-care means I send a text. If someone hits my mind, I send a text and say, I'm thinking about you. I'm here for you.
Okay.
Sometimes self-care is sitting down and not showing up to all the places and all the ways.
Letting no be a complete sentence.
Because I need time to be in my own space with my own thoughts, because it's heavy.
Yes.
It's not just heavy in this season, but it's been heavy. And so if we cannot take care of ourselves in this moment, put our own oxygen mask on, as Channyn says, then we won't be able to take care of anyone else.
My goodness. Listen, you all, we've worked together, all of us. You are leaders in this community. You stand on the forefront, even when it is so often is for this community, uncomfortable and sometimes unsafe. And damn it, you do it anyway. So it is our pleasure to have you here. As I said to Dr. Gayles, personally and professionally, I don't want to have one-off conversations until they do right by us. We're going to continue talking about it, because I think right now we are all we have. We are going to save us. And the power of community, that our viewers and audiences can look at you and see you as a beautiful three-dimensional human being who's doing amazing things, who have hopes and dreams. I think part of what has challenged us for one of the benefits of this whole social media, I'm 56 3/4, so I remember a time.
You don't look it.
You know what, you back next week. But let me focus. Thank you, Ma. But right now, we have to be our saviors. We have to push through the very things that we're blaming them for doing to us. We have to stop doing to each other. There's enough space for all of us. There either is going to be enough space for all of us, or no space for anybody. That's where we are right now. So I thank you all consistently being here. Ella, I'm going to ask you to look at that camera, that one, and tell someone at home right now who is feeling the weight of the world, give him, her, they advice or just a word of encouragement.
Well, I would say, first of all, acknowledge that if you're here, it's because you're powerful. This world is designed for us not to succeed, and if you're breathing, that's big. For any one of us to exist after these generations that they try to break us down, we're here, you're powerful. You matter. Take care of yourself. Look for support. Support is here. Every one of these organizations is here specifically for you. So reach out to any one of us. Let us know how we can be of support. And if we don't have that resource, we will work together to connect you with someone who does. You matter. And reach out.
You better go ahead and host a show. That's a full word. Listen, thank you all. I said this to Channyn when we sat down. I always feel less alone in the world when I'm surrounded by other people who care and have compassion. And right now, that has to be what we have to be. Our relationships matter more than ever. I am going to say, Darius, Joli, Channyn, and Ella, thank you all for being here. It means more than you know for our community, but I think you know already. So thank you very much. You'll be back. You'll be back again and again and again. This isn't your first visit. It's not your last. But thank you. This is an important continuation of a conversation, and we'll have more of them here. And as often as you want to come visit us, we will have you here. There's always a seat for you. That's our time for now, Chicago. I'll be back next week filling in for Andy again with an all-new edition of Chicago Newsroom 2.0. Until then, be well and well informed.